West Nile is a land of very many talents, and today we discover that creative writing has taken it on top of the bar. Though today we bring you one of the authors from Madiland. Happy she is here. She'll be taking us through her personal life. She'll be taking us through her literal career, not forgetting her journey of the book. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Oliviah Uganda, who will be taking you through this particular session. And I bring to you, Madam, how are you? Nice having you here.
Thank you so much. I feel so honored to be hosted by you. I'm so happy to be here today.
So, Trinity, can you kindly tell us about yourself?
Well. I don't know where to start from, but my name is Trinity P's Gorondru,
Okay.
and but what I use is Trinity P Gorondru
Okay.
in most of my books and my literary works. So I'm a writer, I'm an author, I'm a poet from Madiland, Madini Zangwa, proudly.
Okay.
Proudly, and today is a very special day for me because this is we'll not be only talking about the book, about Before Your Twilight Fades, but this is a very huge milestone for me and my personal life in terms of my literary career. So I'm so honored to be here today. So more about myself. I was raised in Moyo. That is actually my home district. But then I was born in Soroti several years back. I was born as the sixth born to 7 girls.
So you can actually speak it as well.
Just be able, Jokuna. That is the only thing.
The essential one.
Yeah, just be able, Jokuna. I think that is the only thing I can remember.
Okay.
But I was born in Soroti. That's where my early childhood actually began from.
Yeah.
And I started my nursery from Global Harvest. Then I think few months later, I left the school. I actually protested because I was told a teacher pinched me and I refused to go back.
You were just told?
Yes, I was told because I couldn't remember that so clearly.
Since you were still a kid?
Yes.
Okay.
So after that, I went to the Light Nursery. That's where I completed my nursery education from. And then, in connection to that, my father was a policeman.
Okay.
And at the same time, a pastor. So you can imagine, I grew up, being, a home being strict on the national laws and also church laws and everything. Yeah. So part of my childhood, I actually grew up in a very loving home, and until now, my family, I feel that they have been my number one supporter when it comes to my dreams and everything.
You actually look a loving person.
Yeah, and that's where I get it from. Okay. That's where I get it from.
Yeah.
And my mother, at that time, she was just a peasant. She was a housewife, doing businesses here and there.
Okay.
So as I completed my nursery education, my father was relocated to Tororo. Yeah, to Tororo. So that's when I joined Rockview Primary School. So that's when I began my primary one to P3. To P3. So I was in Rockview. Then in 2005, I think that is where the twist of the whole thing happened. In 2005, almost late 2005, I unfortunately lost my father.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So when I lost him, we had to travel. For the first time, I think that's when we had to come to Madiland. Yeah, so we came to Moyo. Then after everything, I joined Father Bilbao Memorial Primary School. I'm mentioning the schools because they have a trace with how I developed my passion for writing and all that. So in 2005, that's when I joined Father Bilbao Memorial Primary School up to 2009. I completed my P7.
Okay.
Yeah. So from there, I joined Metu Secondary School.
SS, yes.
Metu SS. The great.
anyone who comes from Madi actually has that school.
Yeah, almost everyone has joined that school, I think.
Okay.
So I was there for 4 years, and I think that is where I really felt a tangible growth
in yourself.
In my literary career. Then from when I was in Metu, I offered literature. That's where I got introduced to English literature. Then in 2014, I went for A-levels, Bishop Spriano Chihangiri. So that's where I completed my A-levels. I offered history, econ, literature. I really loved
alongside submath or
submath. Submath.
Okay.
I didn't like submath.
Yeah.
I didn't like submath. I was not so much a fan of econ. What I just loved so much was the literature bit
and the history bit.
And history, because it also had stories. And history. So I remember when I completed my senior 4, many people were trying to tell me, Trinity, you have to do sciences. You got up. I don't know. Your results were good. Mathematics, you passed math, you passed chemistry. But I didn't find a connection with that because of my love for storytelling.
Yes.
Yeah. So if there was a way to do literature, biology, and chemistry
all at the same time,
maybe I would have done that. But I didn't want to leave literature out. So that's why I went ahead. So as I was completing my A-levels, Bishop Spriano was also a great school. Especially my literature. Okay, all the teachers did a great job. But my literature teachers, they really mentored me. Yes, it's just a double plus, I think, for them. So at first, when I was looking at my options for campus, joining university, I thought of law. Then, but my heart was in mass comm. I wanted to do mass comm.
Yeah.
But as I looked at my options, I think even filling in some of those things, I did that. But I don't know whether fortunately or unfortunately, God's plan, I ended up joining MOOBS. I was offered actually on a government scholarship.
That was nice.
International business. Yeah. So I went to MOOBS, Nakawa. I was there for 3 years. I
actually realized most of the guys on government sponsorship were doing international business.
Yeah, I really don't know. Yeah. So I don't know why, but I think it was also a good thing because, understanding business and all. Yeah. So I was there for 3 years, and so currently I graduated in 2020, just at when Corona was, just before Corona, COVID-19, the lockdown and everything. So that's when I graduated, and I'm so glad. So I think about my personal journey. Yeah, I think about my family. I think that summarizes it.
Okay, that was an amazing to actually know about you. So having looked at you from the nursery bit of it, like from down there, even the movement when you lost your dad, then you joined O-level and you came to A-level. So what sparked your passion for writing and storytelling? Because when we look back, we see you got the government sponsorship and you were doing international business. But it so happens after the 3 years you graduated, you decided to do this. So what sparked your passion for that?
Well, I could trace my love for storytelling way back. I think way back. And I would attribute my first encounter with stories to my father. So being a pastor, he was of course a preacher. So
also in the national.
Yes. So he loved telling stories. And one of the stories that he loved sharing with us, he was a strict disciplinarian, like really strict. That is one of the things I really remember about him. But on the other side of it, he introduced me to stories, like those old muddy folk tales about Ito and Ebi, and those stories about Leah. he's the first person who introduced me to that. So that is when I think I fell in love with stories.
Okay.
Yeah, in general. So he introduced me to such stories, and I really loved them so much. One of my clear memories about him was, after a long day at work, for us, we'll be at school. So when we come back home after evening devotion, we will all gather together, especially me and my sister, whom I follow. He would sit us down and he would just tell us those stories.
Around fire.
Not fire. There was really no fire at that time, but he would just sit us down in the sitting room. Yeah. So he would tell us that. And I usually looked forward to those moments. Then other than that, what introduced me to reading, that was on stories.
Yeah.
But what introduced me to reading was these Bible stories, those the books for children,
the boy Bible.
Yes, the boy and the sling, Noah and the ark. So there were those small books in church that were usually distributed to kids. So as an active Sunday school kid, as other children loved, were there with sports and other games, I loved books. I just loved reading. So and still in church, when I was in Sunday school, I also joined the drama,
the drama school,
the drama club and everything, and even in school. Actually, throughout all my schools, I think from nursery to spread to university,
at least you had somewhere you were participating.
Yes, participating. Okay. So, but the reading side of it, I started reading through, the Bible stories. Then from there, the books. So when we came to Moyo, as I mentioned earlier, I was in Father Bilbao Memorial Primary School. It's a mission-founded school, where it's a government school. And one of the things, at that time, just being recently orphaned, there was a lot of trouble, issues, let me say hardships generally at home. But my sanctuary, like where I found peace so much, was in the school library. When I was in P4, it was, I think I was about 9, maybe 10 years, something like that. I contested and I became the assistant librarian prefect.
Like you were so curious. You wanted to.
And not because I wanted leadership, but I wanted access to the free books.
Okay, that was nice.
Yes. Yeah. So I wasn't so much into the leadership side of it.
You just wanted the free access to the library. Yeah.
Because if they find me there, anytime, like this is the prefect for Now that role actually really gave me access to books. So I was able to read. Back then at that time in the village, we didn't know things of TVs and everything. Yes. So my first encounter with the Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, all those things, Oliviah Twist, they were all in the school library. So for almost 3 years, I think from P4 almost to P7, I was the school librarian prefect.
Wow.
Just because I loved that access to books. Yeah. So, but amidst all these, I really read so much. I remember even, I don't know if you ever encountered those HIV and AIDS series.
Yes.
Trap, Vumi Sees It, all those books. I actually read those books, both the ones below my level and above my level. I don't know at which kind of speed. I actually just finished them because I had access.
But would you concentrate on other subjects?
Yes,
because with the way you were reading the books, it seemed like you gave them much more attention than these other subjects.
Well, I tried giving them time.
Okay.
And I think they were the ones that made me, I was really keen so much. When it came to math, science, they were not my things. But funny how I also excelled in them. I think just that reading culture in general helped me. Yeah. But when it comes to storytelling, as I encountered these books, so many characters, so many settings, I was curious why I didn't come across a character that was from my land.
Like all this while
all this while I never found a character called maybe Drichile or having those names of ours. And I was really curious. Like
most of those books actually had authors from Kenya, South Africa. Yes. People from the coast actually. Wrote more of those books.
Yeah. And even within the Ugandan side, you find that most of the books are, most of the authors are from Central or Western Uganda. Northern Uganda, the Greater North also, but I didn't encounter any from West Nile. Yeah. I didn't ask anyone about that, but it was just in my heart. It was in my heart. So when I joined Senior 1, I think that is where the twist of everything really happened. When I joined Senior 1, I think it was in the second week of my reporting to Metu. Has a Njuka, they used to call us Njuka, atoms. Yeah. So has a Senior 1, very tiny, very small. I clearly remember that afternoon when I went to the school library. There were those intimidating A-level students who had their long sleeve. They were big. Others were carrying big biology books, like really huge. Me with my tiny self, I just went searching through where there are novels, because that was what I understood.
That was your interest.
That was my interest. So I went there and I landed on a book. So I mentioned that book, and even as I mentioned it, there is a way I feel about it, because I think that book changed my perspective on a lot.
Okay. So
that book was Adventures of Goli by Paul Kiapi. Adventures of Goli. I know so many people might have never come across it.
Sounds a familiar book.
Yeah, but it was a book that was set in Madiland. It was a book that was set in Madiland, along Laropi, the river area. It was about a man who adventured and went southwards following the Nile, and how he went and married a Musoga lady. Not Musoga, Munyoro, something like that. I think it was pre-colonial. The setting is pre-colonial, and I loved that book. Not only the story, but I fell in love with the concept itself. That at least this was the first book that I ever encountered from West Nile.
Okay.
Yes. So I really fell in love with it. I read it, I don't know how many times, like over and over again. I could not believe. I read it with that blend of emotions, knowing that, when you know that your culture or your area is really not well represented in mainstream media, that kind of thing. So even as a kid, as a child, as a teenager at that time, I made a vow to myself. I think I didn't mention it out to someone, but I made a vow that I was going to be a writer, and I was going to have that aspect of having characters or having settings from my land. I want stories, like beautiful stories from West Nile, from Madiland, to go out there. So it was that book and that influence and that decision that made me offer literature. Then that made me proceed and all that. Okay. So I think that summarizes, if I'm to talk about that.
Your spark.
Yes. Yeah. So my spark, I think this summarizes that. Yeah.
Wow. Sounds a bit interesting, actually, taking my mind off. Anyway, you have published a book.
Yes.
And the book before Your Twilight Fades is an emotional and powerful narrative. So what inspired you to tackle the theme GBV, and why would you feel it's a very crucial thing to talk about in this Before Your Twilight Fades book?
Well, connecting to how the concept of this book actually came. This is my debut. I've written so many books, so many pieces before. I have several poems. Some have been published even in my website, in some of my social media pages and all that. But being compiled as a book, this is my first to be officially published. Yes. So people who know me, people who are close to me, they actually know that things connecting to women empowerment are so dear to me. Things connecting to girl child. So many people attribute it to maybe because I come from a family of girls. Probably.
So you actually have no brother?
No.
Okay.
No biological brother.
Okay.
Yes. So, but I think it is beyond that. And things connecting to women, things connecting to girls. I believe that women should not be underlooked in any way just because we are women. If it is on the issue of maybe character, women could be judged basing on that. But just because I'm a woman doesn't mean that I am less.
Or you're nothing.
I'm nothing. Yes. So things of women empowerment have always been dear to my heart. And I think it's reflected in most of the things that I do. And then I'm also into things of Africa, like Africanicity and all that, especially my cultural heritage.
So small, you're traditional.
Small, I'm traditional. I don't know. I think I'm a blend. I think on the good side of tradition, I'm really into it. I love seeing our culture represented in a good way. Yes, and especially as a writer, you know, in the mainstream media, even the cultures that are represented out there, you find there's a negative tonation when it comes to African culture. But I think it is our role to see that the beauty of our culture comes out. So I think those are the things that I'm really so passionate about. And what exactly brought this book to life was, I think I even wrote it in my preface, probably almost 2 years ago. I came across a particular story. This story was about a Kenyan woman. Okay, I had encountered so much about gender-based violence in our communities. You know, growing up, you're seeing your aunties almost beating themselves to death. Children are caught up in between. You find families, people are fighting. There's a lot happening. But one that caught my attention on media was a story of a woman. That woman was beaten almost to death by her husband. And she was beaten to death by her husband. And she was not beaten to death. She was almost beaten to death by her husband. At that time, I think that violence began around 2002, according to the story. So this woman was terribly beaten. Her skull was almost fractured. And she tolerated that. In that story, she said that as she went through that, after being almost butchered, she would come out, try to wear makeup and like smile to hide. Yes, to hide. And she didn't want people to know. Actually, nobody knew, and especially her kids. She kept saying that she was doing that because of her children. And she didn't want her relatives to look at her husband with bad eyes, that kind of thing. Then at the end of it, this man almost fractured her skull. And at that time, they were fundraising for close to 50,000 USD. It moved me. Then I also came across another similar story of another woman, this time who was beaten to death. You know, who was beaten to death. She lost her life. And then I came across so many of such stories. So I always knew that I was going to write something connecting to gender-based violence, domestic violence, and especially connecting to the silence that surrounds it. Yeah, you find when someone is going through that, it is usually so hard to talk about it. And especially our African culture, you know, there's a thin line between what is culturally accepted and abuse sometimes when it comes to women and women issues. Yes. But I didn't start writing this book at that time. I actually began writing this book in February of this year.
This year.
And
we are in, today is 1st of October.
This is today.
So it took you about how many months?
It took me, this is close to, let me say,
Seven months.
7 months
Okay.
to work on this. I was working on another book. Then I enrolled for a creative writing course at Uganda Christian University.
Yeah.
Yes, I really want to thank them so much for bringing that up, because I was looking for my tribe. You know, the publishing industry has not been like up there in West Nile yet. So when I enrolled for that course, we were introduced to a very good publisher. So that was when I began writing on this book. I finished writing on it. We began the publishing journey, and eventually it came out. So the theme is very strong on gender-based violence, and it is because I believe that the silence that surrounds gender-based violence is as dangerous as the gender-based violence itself. Yes.
Wow, that actually don't know what to say. When I listened to all this that you said, it seemed like you were narrating it to me.
Yes.
So that is narrative poetry. Yeah. It is actually something beautiful, because while you're talking to someone, they are picturing what you are feeling.
Yes.
So you are putting me in the mood of the pain. I almost shed tears. And it is a unique form of storytelling. Any other person would just give you maybe a paper and tell you, here, go through it. If you understand it, that's up to you. If you don't understand it, that's up to you. But yours is quite unique. It is different. Before someone actually gets to this book to open it and read it, with what you've narrated, they're like, okay, can I just get the book and I know what exactly happened? And with this narration being unique, yeah, why did you choose it? Because it has initially brought out the complexity of GBV.
Well, narrative poetry, I think this was my first encounter with the lengthy version of narrative poetry. I've written several poems before, but just short ones, even narrative, but short. But this one came in because I wanted to tell a story. Yeah. Like the story of the Kenyan lady, the one that inspired the book, actually. Leave alone that. The story that is narrated here is about a lady from Germany. It's a story. It is similar to a novel, only that it does not follow the rules of a novel. So I wanted that aspect because it gives me the freedom, to be able to flow with a story. Writing has a lot of rules, and sometimes it limits the way we share the emotional aspect in the book, the flow and everything. So I wanted this particular style because I wanted the story to flow. Unlimited. I didn't want rules of English or grammar here and that kind of thing. So that's why I ended up using
The
narrative poetry. And I think it also connects to how complicated the theme is. This issue connecting to gender-based violence and the silence that surrounds it. It is a very deep theme. It's a very deep topic. So it connects to how complicated this whole thing is. So how people don't talk about it and all that. So I wanted to narrate the story in a free way, and I think it was able to bring it out well. At first, I wanted to bring it out in the form of a short story. Okay, like maybe either a short story or a short novel, which is like a novella. But this worked better. So that's why I used that style.
All right, interesting. So, having written this before Your Twilight Fades book, who are the authors, and literary role models that have inspired you in your writing journey, and maybe how have they influenced your work on this before you getting to this book in particular?
Yes. So I think as I narrated how I came to fall in love with storytelling, I mentioned one particular author who was Paul Hiapi.
The Adventure of
Yes,
Goli.
The Adventure of Goli.
Mm.
I've never met him in person, and I don't know so much about his other works, but his particular book was so much of an influence to me. So that's why I consider him. He was the first encounter I had of an author from West Nile, from Madiland, who was talking about Madi characters and the setting and everything like that. So I consider him, and this particular piece of his has a great influence to me.
Okay.
And then I think I also love Okot Bibitek. When it comes to this form of, this style of writing, I think I took that from him. You know, his Song of Lawino and Ochol.
Yes, yes.
It is written in this version. It's also a narrative poem, the lengthy version of it. Similar, not really the same, but similar. And I also loved how he was very strong on African culture. How he was portraying the beauty of African culture versus how the Western culture views Africa, our culture. So I also look at him as a great influence. And then there are several. Recently, I came into contact with Professor Sister DPO. She's also an author. She's also an author from Germany. She's a lecturer at she's a professor in Makerere. She also writes great she also has great books, especially with settings and characters from this side. And then another one that stands out internationally. I love her books because she's strong on women empowerment and women voices. That is the Nigerian author Chimamanda.
Chimamanda
Adichie. Yes, I love her books. I love her novels. I think I've read almost everything that she has written that I could access. So I love her. I love how she brings out the thing of women, the thing of gender. She's very strong on that. She's also strong on her identity as an African, especially as an author in the international space. Yes, so I really love her. I think those are the people that stand out for me. Though there are so many other writers, but I'm looking at those who have worked on fiction and maybe poems. There are so many other writers who work on maybe self-help books and all that, but I'm specifically looking at the style that I'm inclined towards. Yes, so those are the ones that stand out for me.
Okay, I thought you were going to mention about, actually, I thought you were only going to talk about The Adventure of Goli, but you've brought out about 4 more on that. Anyhow, so you are relaunching the Trinity podcast show very soon, which will focus on sharing GBV survivor stories and hosting expert discussion. How did your experience with Before Your Twilight Fades book push you to actually relaunching? Because I'm sure the podcast was there.
Yes.
It was there.
Yes.
So maybe because you got busy doing other things, you first put it on pause. But because of Before Your Twilight Fades, I think it has brought the love for that back. Yes, the book is focusing on GBV. So yeah, tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, about the Trinity Show, it was initially an online program. I think it was launched in 2020. And it went on for almost 6 months. I should say about 6 months. About 6 months, yes. So at that time when I was launching it, you know, we were in the middle of the COVID pandemic. Yes, and a lot was happening. So I was able to host different expert guests, you know, where we also talked about gender-based violence at that time. I remember we even talked about the boy child. We talked about mental health in the face of COVID. You know, with lockdown, at that time there was a rise in suicide and all that.
People were depressed.
People were so depressed. Yeah. So due to a reason or another, we had to pause. We had to pause on it, and you know, I also got busy with my day job, and I think I also left Arua for quite some time. So it somehow affected the program and due to so many reasons. So we could not continue. Now, when I published Before Your Twilight Fades, and how it is connecting to GBV and the silence that surrounds it, I felt like, why don't we bring back this as a podcast, as a YouTube podcast, so that we will be able to invite people to not only share their stories and ideas about several other things, but especially the first episodes that will be dedicated to specifically gender-based violence. So we are officially launching this month, but the general focus is not only GBV. We are going to talk about a lot of things. We are going to talk about a lot of things. All that we can talk about, our stories. It's going to be a platform. I'm going to invite so many people. Talk about their stories. We are going to talk about business. We are going to talk about culture. We are going to talk about so many things. But the first episodes is going to focus on gender-based violence. So we are going to host experts and even people who are going to share their personal stories. We are going to look at the legal perspective. We are going to look at the government perspective, the religious perspective, culture. What does culture say about gender-based violence? How is it impacting on the health perspective, just the social perspective? We're going to handle all that. So there's a connection, as you mentioned, with the publishing of the book and the relaunch. Yes.
All right. So we realize you're going to invite the people you've just mentioned, the legal bit of it. You're going to invite the government sector. Then you will invite survivors of this, those who have survived it, and maybe you will get someone who is in between that GBV issue. So what do you expect from these people? Because when you bring them, they're going to be like saviors of those who are actually in the dark. They're going to be the light to them. So what insights do you expect from them?
Yeah, well, the purpose of this first is to raise the awareness, and especially on the perspective of West Nile region. On the perspective of West Nile region, and this one will look at the local community, the refugee communities, and everyone who is directly or indirectly connected to. But then the insights that I expect, apart from the awareness. One of the goals or one of the major aims of this podcast, or specifically these episodes, the GBV series, let me say the GBV
and the leaders
series,
you're inviting being connected,
is to foster dialogue.
Okay.
I know even the experts that we shall be inviting, not all of us know so much, or not all of us know everything. So we will be sharing our ideas, trying to get solutions here and there from different perspectives. From maybe the government will say this is working, but then the person who is being affected by it directly is saying that is not working. So what is going to work?
So you need it from all the angles.
So that we are able to talk about it. If we want to get a solution to something, I believe is when we start talking about
having a dialogue.
Yes. So that is actually the major thing that I want out of the GBV series. Yes. Yeah.
So as a writer from the West Nile region, what are your thoughts on the creative writing industry, or what advice would you actually give the young aspiring writers who want to share their stories? Though it has a lot of challenges. Like it has not been a smooth one for you to actually come to this book. You're not actually supposed to talk about more of those challenges, because those challenges have actually made your light bright. They have actually brought you to this book. So what advice would you give to those who are, you never know, someone is there, they're like, now how am I going to start this? But on hearing what you're saying and also getting to a few of those that you've written, and now that you've already published this, you're also going to relaunch your podcast, maybe it could be of a positive impact to this young person.
Well. The West Nile creative writing industry.
Yeah.
Creative arts, it's an art, I should say, just like all the others. You know, West Nile, as you mentioned before, is a land of many talents.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have singers, we have different types of musicians. We have so many. We have sports. I think we are the hub of sports. So many people have sports in West Nile. And I think writing, let me say creative writing, or the literary industry, I think there's a light. I'm seeing light. I'm actually seeing, and there's hope. There's actually hope. I wouldn't say we are badly off because we have writers who are coming up. We even have somehow established writers, only that there's a need to up our game when it comes to marketing our books, publicizing some of our works and all that. So I think we are on the right trend.
Okay.
We are on the right trend. There are so many writers who are coming up, which is a good thing. And even the fact that we already have a publishing house in Arua, a very good one, an excellent publishing house. That is PSR, the ones who worked on my book. And we also have certain courses that are dedicated to helping writers, like the creative writing course in UCU. That is already a good sign.
Yeah.
So to those who want to be part of this, I want to say we're already lonely. I think we are so yes. We need more people into this clan of ours. You know, if we are to say, okay, let's gather all the singers, all the musicians in West Nile, you really see every, you know, the room won't be enough. Like there are so many. But if you are to say bring up all the writers, we are there. We are not like so few, but we need more. I think we need more. And I believe that there is a direct correlation with art and the development in other sectors in our region. There's a direct correlation. You find that if we have so many writers, for example, or we have so many books from West Nile that have gone out there, we are giving the world something to talk about West Nile.
True.
I remember when, coming to sports, when Dorcas in Jikuru, at that time when we were young, yes, everybody talked about her, and that was something good for West Nile. So at least when people are talking about West Nile and sports, at least we have Dorcas in Jikuru, though.
For consolation.
Yes, for consolation. But she also represented us well. Yeah. So I believe that as we are trying to develop other sectors of art or sports and all that, we should also look at creative writing. Yes, we should also look at creative writing, and I believe there is potential. If it took me almost 14 years to officially come out and publish a book, but I've been writing so many things, even I lost others. I don't know where they are. But that shows that there is hope. That shows that there is hope. So if there is someone out there who wants to write something, who wants to share your idea and through writing and all that, I think you join us. It's fun, you know, it's really, really fun. And yeah, we'll link up.
Anyway, maybe they could also come out of their comfort zones, you know. You said it took you about 14 years. 14 years is not a joke.
It's not.
That is a lot.
It's not.
That is a lot, but it's a nice one. Meanwhile, you have accomplished a lot, and more is yet to come.
Yeah.
So are there any new books? Do you have any future literary projects that are coming up in the horizon?
Well, so I have just released Before Your Twilight Fades.
Okay.
And it's already available. We're already starting to work on the distribution and its marketing and all that. And I have other poems that are being published, I think almost weekly on my socials and my website. Those are some of the pieces that I have. But then I have other two huge projects that I'm looking forward to maybe finalizing. I think maybe next year I'll have to publish one novel probably, and then also in 2026 or 2027. So I have something cooking up. I wouldn't mention the details of it, but I'm working on a novel this time, a full-length novel. It's a historical adventure and romance. Yes. It's set in pre-colonial West Nile, I should say. Then I also have another one connecting. It's also, I think, a narrative poem. So those are the big projects that I'm working on. But then there are other smaller ones here and there. I think I'll get to share them. Yeah.
So as you've heard it from her, she is cooking, and we should be expecting something marvelous and interesting from her. So balancing the launch of the book and the podcast, actually a bit challenging if we look at what exactly you're going to talk about, especially the first few episodes and this book itself. They're going to be looking at GBV in the society or anywhere it is happening from. So how do you handle this? Remember, it is something emotional. You get it yourself. You're having it at your heart and you're jotting it down. So how are you handling this as a person and all together with your work? Remember, there is work, and this is just like something you do as a hobby.
Yes, I should
but
say.
It has emotions. Do hobbies have emotions?
I think when you're enjoying something, happiness is emotions.
Okay, so how would you handle these challenges as a person?
Everything has challenges.
Okay,
I should say.
That's already a positive remark.
Yes, everything has challenges. Even if you're to look at other sectors of art, like artists, by the time you write your song down and you go to the studio,
thinking of, is it going to be a hit
or something like that. But then writing a book is not so different because it's all art. You're trying to put your art out there, and so that people will be able to take it out or take out the message that you want to pass. And then everything is really challenging. Okay, there's nothing that is not challenging, I should say, generally in life.
A coin has two sides.
Yes.
Okay.
But I think what keeps me going is because, from this long story that I narrated to you, I love what I do. Okay. I think I love what I do. I was even almost not going to publish this book. Almost. I don't know. I was almost not going to publish it if I had only focused on whatever rocks that I was encountering. It was really hard. I don't work within, I'm not around, and then you find that sometimes I'm in a place maybe that doesn't have network. I have to travel here and there. It's really hard, but it is just because of my love and the passion that I have. I think that's key, I should say. And my support system.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I think I have a very good support system, especially my sisters. I know you guys are watching this. Those girls will make you run. Remember when the art piece first came out for the cover? I was like, you girls, I'm just giving this. I just want you guys to see and review it, please. I don't want you to post it anywhere. Before I could even complete, they already shared it everywhere. They had already changed their DPs and everything. And even my friends, I really have supportive friends. And right now, I would say my management, they're really doing a very great job. My publishers, I would say the network that I'm surrounding myself with are really helping me. So if someone is out there, maybe you think maybe the challenges you're encountering will also maybe try to limit you. I think you should get yourself some network. Yes. And I think I also talk about God. Yeah. God has been with me, I should say.
So without a support system, it would be hard. Meaning they have given their whole to you. They are demanding you a lot. So
they are demanding me. I don't know how.
There's no need to step on the brakes. Just keep the flow. Anyhow, for those who have actually read the book or listened to your show, what's the key message you hope for them to walk away with, whether it's from like your personal perspective or maybe the leaders?
I would say I don't know. I think let me handle the books and then the podcast a little bit differently.
Yeah.
When it comes to the book, this particular book, I would say my main message or my major theme here is for us to shatter the silence that surrounds gender-based violence.
Okay.
If we are able to unmute ourselves and talk about some of these things that are culturally, let me say socially so hard to talk about, then we will open ourselves into forming a strong community. We can talk about any other thing.
Yeah.
You know, we can talk about our businesses, how we can improve our region, even economically and everything. So I think my major message is on the thing of we need not to remain silent. Whether you are whether you're a victim, a primary or secondary victim, whether you're just a witness, whether you're a survivor, I think sharing your story helps. Sharing your story helps. So that is what I want the readers of this book to pick out.
Yeah.
And especially if you see someone is going through a lot, connecting to this line, it is not good to keep quiet about it. Make sure this person gets the help that they need, so that they don't become another statistics.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Like to add on what we have
already. You know, like the recent athlete. I wouldn't leave this interview without talking about the recent athlete.
Cheptegei.
Yes, Rebecca Cheptegei. Just recently.
Mm.
I remember when I got that news, I was so distressed because it was at the point when I was almost releasing this book, and I'm like, look at the person we've lost. Someone who even represented us on worldwide. And now here we are. We just lost her because of and burned to death. You know, and usually things like this don't just come out. You find their traces. Yes, and you find that it accumulates and eventually it leads to something like that. Yes. So when it comes to the book, that is the message. That is the message. That is the message of the book. And then when it comes to the podcast, the first 15 episodes has the same message. Yes, because it connects to the book. But then the rest that we shall have in after this is done, we shall talk about a lot. We shall talk about a lot. Yes, we shall talk about a lot. Yeah.
Anyway, they usually say you would rather come back home alive than them bringing a dead body of you in the names of.
She was a submissive wife.
That has been it for the show tonight. We are cooking more and more for you. It's been Oliviah and Trinity P herself. Have yourselves the best of the evening.